All right, we are back, and you can tell from the Vice's excitement that we are ready to talk about rounds 2 and 3 of this rookie draft. Last week, sounds like a soap opera. Last week on the Fantasy Show, we talked about offseason trades and round 1 of the rookie draft. This week, we are going to chat more about the trades that happened that we omitted that Spitzer is still upset about. We're going to talk about the trades that happened since last week. That's how you know you're in an active draft. We're the middle of June and there's trades happening. And then we're going to jump into rounds 2 and 3, kind of go through that, give some of our best picks, some of our worst picks. There's my wife, Jackie, walking around the back there for those that are looking. Oh, she's coming in. You want to say hi? Nope. Come say hi.
Nope. It's not actually his wife.
That's just my hired home model, so much cheaper and better tax purposes than wife. So but yeah, we're gonna jump through all that, and then I think Spitzer has who he thinks had the best and worst draft as well. We'll see if me and Vice can make some hardline opinions between now and then to give our takes as well. So without further ado, no surprise guests. I mean, if we have a surprise guest at this point, it'd be a surprise to me too. So we got the same crew back. Me, Uncle Bitch, and Matt are here reporting for duty, ready to go. And we may have cameos from Bo as well, so stay tuned for that. Let's jump right into it and talk. This should almost be an opening segment. What is Spitz mad about this week? That should be what this is called. Look at this. We're putting together segments as we go. So it's a nice, peaceful Saturday. All's well with the world. Spitz, what has you pissed?
I didn't expect this question. There's so much going through my mind here. That you won't ever listen to me, that everything I say is stupid.
What are you pissed about that we can change? Those things we can't change.
Whatever I say that we should do, and you should shut up about it. That's what you do.
Why don't we talk about the trades that we omitted last week? Because that we can rectify for you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we didn't talk. I thought we should talk about these trades kind of as we went through the draft.
Okay.
Because I thought it was a little bit relevant to do it that way as opposed to any other way. I don't know if we talked about Pat and Vice with their trade for Ramondre Stevenson, the first one, because I think you guys just traded him back, right?
Yeah, we hot potatoed him a little bit.
That's right. There was another one.
Yeah. So this one was Vice trading, let's see here, to get Rondale Moore, Dubs, and pick 311 for Ramondre, and trading Ramondre to Pat. Did that happen during the draft, Vice?
Yeah, that happened sometime in round 2, I believe. I thought I was going to be able to flip Dubs for something in the second round, which there was no takers. So I kind of screwed myself there. I was looking to maybe upgrade a running back or get a younger running back in a better situation, but no takers on Dubs. So I ended up kind of stuck with him and stuck with the 311, unfortunately.
Sure. And looking at it, this was actually done in the first round. This was done in the morning.
I got it on the screen. I found it.
Okay. Yeah, this was the morning of the first round. I like Dubs, as we talked about, but I like this trade for Pat, actually. And this was before Stevenson got his contract extension, but so that has to be factored in. But still, I don't think you got a ton, Vice, besides Dubs. I think the other two are not noteworthy at all. So I like this trade for Pat, personally.
I actually thought Spencer Rattler was going to be at the 311, which would have justified this whole trade for me.
Sure.
Kirill got him one pick before me. So had Spencer Rattler fell to 311, I'd been pretty happy here. But didn't happen. So kind of a busted trade for me.
Gotcha. I think he was picked like 5 or 6 picks before you. I could be wrong though.
Just one
I-
pick before 311. He was 310.
Oh, he was. Oh, okay.
I actually like this trade for Vice. Not that. Okay, well, here's the thing. Pat needs players as opposed to going to star players. Getting Ramondre is just kind of a weird move for his team. I'd rather keep Dobbs. I'd rather have that 3rd-round rookie pick. Moore's probably just absolutely nothing. But give me, for a rebuilding team, give me a receiver that could, like Dobbs could be around for the next 5 years. He might fade into oblivion, but give me that plus a 3rd-round rookie pick, then a running back on an expiring contract at the time that even if he does get re-signed, I mean, we've all heard Vice's opinions about the Patriots offense. So, I mean, Ramondre is the best player in this, but if your team sucks and you're trying to rebuild, I'd rather take the receiver and a pick. Even ignore Rondell Moore even exists in this trade. I'd rather have Dobbs in the 3rd than Ramondre. Here's what Keep Trade Cut says for whatever that's worth, and this is post the contract extension for Ramondre. So his
Ramondre got a pretty big bump in value per post signing. He probably got like 700 or 800 points worth of value just from that. Once I saw he got signed, I regretted this trade even more. He's not on a great offense, but now that he has like some stability and where he's going to be, I actually reached out to Pat pretty quickly after the draft and was like, hey, if you're interested in flipping Ramondre back at some point, I'd like it back, which ended up happening, I was pretty happy to get him back. Like, not the greatest situation, but at least a couple years of a locked-in running back.
Spitz, have you had second thoughts about this trade as we've talked more about it, or are you
No. I mean,
ironclad
yeah,
in?
you can only have enough, so many receivers. And yeah, I like Dobbs. Pick 311 is, I mean, right at the end. I don't know. I think this was essentially Stevenson for Dobbs, and I would rather have Stevenson no matter what.
311 ended up becoming Garendo, which Pat ended up trading his next year's 3rd, which is basically like next year's 2nd for. So that 311, he really wanted that pick. He traded away. He had to trade next year's draft capital to get that back. So I don't know. Okay, so there's that trade. And then what's the next trade you want to talk about? This one, right? Mia Hop.
Yes, this was a trade I was talking about.
It's a great trade. I love this trade.
Of course you do.
By the way, Sleeper doesn't do a good job of showing the transactions for trades when it comes to picks is much better on the mobile version than the browser version, because this doesn't show, like they show 2nd-round picks, but they don't show 2.7 or 2.8 or whatever it is. So
Okay.
if you have that on your phone, do you want to explain what it was?
Oh, sure. Let's see here. So this was Luke getting pick 208 from Michael. Mike gave up pick 210, so 2 picks later, and a 2025 second. To me, that's totally ludicrous to begin with. But the fact that this was more ludicrous to me was that it was in the 1st round still. We weren't even close to these picks, and he could have made this trade and still potentially not get who he wanted.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think at the time you had pick 208 and 209, so you had the 2 picks in front of them. Is that right?
And 7. I think I had just traded away 7. I at one point had 2.7, 2.8, 2.9. 2.7 got traded to Justin in that Drake May Mixon Debo trade. So yeah, I had 2.8 and 2.9.
So you had pick 2.8, 2.9. You're not taking a tight end with your team.
Hey, we don't, at this point, we didn't know who his guy was.
No, I know. But he knew who his guy was, theoretically, I hope. He knew who his guy was, so why is he trading in front of you, a guy that's not going to pick a tight end?
I can tell you why. So both me and Hoppy like listening to the fantasy footballers. And I think he follows him I know he follows him religiously, like watches the show. I don't as much in the off season, and I've listened to a lot of people, so I kind of take a bunch of different takes and choose from there. But they love Ben Sinnott, and Hoppy wanted to ensure that he would get him. I think the trade's silly. That's why I instantly did it. I don't think I would have taken Sinnott, but he was on my radar, at least into consideration based on who was there. I think I would have just gone with more wide receivers. But yeah, I agree with you. Stupid trade. I love it for me. So
I don't know. Someone's gonna have to explain Ben Sinnott to me because I don't really understand.
we'll get there.
I don't really understand why he's even a fantasy pick. He's going to be a blocking tight end. They've got Zach Ertz there. He wasn't good in college. He played on a crappy offense. And let me say this about the fantasy footballers. This is a podcast that was telling people to draft Trey Lance and draft Justin Fields as soon as last year. I mean, these guys are so obsessed with having to like find the next guy and be right about the next guy. I think sometimes it blinds their judgment on some of these guys. And like, I don't understand Ben Sinnott at all. And if you're gonna trade up, why would you take somebody like that? Like, I think I texted you right after this pick. I'm like, interesting to trade up for a blocking tight end. So,
I knew that's who he was going to take too. I knew it.
I don't get it. I don't understand Ben Sinnott. I'll be very surprised if he does anything in the NFL.
We'll talk more about the Senator when we're going through round 2. So let's save some of our tight end takes for that point. But yeah, the trade in itself. So what Spitz is saying, to move up 2 spots.
I've been saving up some anger for Ben Sinnott.
There.
I've been saving it up for this guy.
Yeah, if you're if you really want a guy and you think you need to move up 2 spots to get him, but you have no idea if he'll ever be there because someone else can take him, and you do it a round in advance, and you basically just light your next year's second on fire. I mean, I'm going to take this trade every time. So this was easy as can be for me. I just second round picks are dropping out of the sky. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And I loved like 4 guys at around where that 2.7, 2.8, 2.9 was going to be. So I knew that I'd still get somebody I liked, even if I didn't get the exact guy. And I was like, that's fine. So
I texted Mike right after this because I was so waiting to see who he's going to pick that he did this for. And then it was Sinnott. And I agree with Vice. I don't get it either with him. I don't understand it. And I said it's an awful pick.
I'm pretty sure he sent this to me too. I do not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he sent this to me, and I just took it. So
yeah, well, we can move on.
Okay. So trades. Those were the draft trades that were up in round 1 that we kind of didn't go through last week.
There's one more if you want to go into it.
Okay, sure. What is that? I don't have it in front, but you can explain it.
It was my pick 113 for Krills.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about that.
So this is the 3rd year in a row where I'll have Krills first round pick.
Yeah, you just love cheering against that guy.
I have to, I guess. I do it every year. I got Lamar Jackson earlier. If I wouldn't have gotten him, I would have taken Jaden. I would have taken Bo Nix with that pick. Just because you're not 100% sure about Jaden, but since I did that, I thought I could trade away that pick. So,
Vice, what did you think? You know the trade we're talking about right here, right? The 113, I think, this year for Vice or for Krill's first next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't like who's there at that point, that's the pick to make. Or if I think kicking the can down the road for most of those guys at the end of the first round, early second round is a good move. I'm not completely sold on any of them. I think they're all dart throws. So good move. There's going to be some good running back depth this upcoming year. So having a pick in the first round will be pretty great, especially with Saquon Barkley getting a little older. Allows some flexibility for Spitz.
Yeah, from Spitz's standpoint, you take a late first, and worst case, get a late first next year. Best case, get a mid to potentially early. Brill hasn't made the playoffs either of the first 2 years. He said some bad luck with injuries, some bad draft choices, trying to focus a little too much on a young team rather than a relevant team now. And he definitely, like, if you look at his team this year, His team, he's got AR and Lawrence, so he's great for quarterback as long as they stay healthy. He's got arguably the best 1-2 punch at running back, Bijan and Breece Hall. His wide receivers are the huge area of concern for this team. Coleman, who he got with that pick. Adonai, who I don't even know how many routes he'll be out there running initially. Same thing goes for Jameson Williams. Then you've got the never-ending story of Kyle Pitts, Najee Harris, and then from a depth perspective, this team, just to speed through it, is going to be hard to rely on any of those guys. So probably a good chance that he gets an earlier first in a future year. But from Kirill's standpoint, with receivers that are out there that he wants, he's able to move his draft capital to try and be more relevant now, get a guy to fill a wide receiver hole. So, if Keon Coleman is the dude, Kirill won't regret that trade at all. So
no, I mean, it's looking like they're going to go on with him as the wide receiver 1. So it's a good chance to take on a guy like that. We'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, I think it works well for both teams because Kirill needs players more so, and Spitz can punt it for another year. So if he would have got Keon or any of these guys, they'd just be bench players for his team. So
Trade capital too.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that we've had 2 trades this week that have happened, both with Pat. I guess I don't know if we never talked about the Garendo trade that happened too. I talked.
It was just a 3-1 for Garendo, with early third.
3-1. It's
If
already
you
stated.
If you look at the teams, I mean, that when you can't even fill the roster, it's going to be a 3-1 or 3-2 at this point in the where we're at. That could obviously change with the way Pat makes moves, but taking somebody that I took at 3-11 and possibly turning it into an early third is a win.
Yeah. That's why another reason why I didn't like that trade Pat made for Ramondre is I knew you wanted Garendo, and that was around where he was going to be. So then to go ahead and give up next year's your third, which is probably going to be the first pick in the third.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty disappointed with the options that were left at 3-11. So I took just kind of a dart throw and was happy to move back on from this pick. Like I said, my goal was to get Radler, and that didn't happen. I would have been happy if Estime was there too. So I was pretty disappointed with who ended up falling to 3-11 overall.
Yeah, I think this was an awful trade for Pat. I think this is really poor management. I think this is, you get a heart set on a guy and just want to make something happen. It's like Garendo is not even the backup at this point. CMC just got a contract extension, and this may have been before the contract extension.
Yeah, it was before.
Like 2 days before or something.
Yeah.
But this is just...
He ended up getting the pick back, so really not a big deal for him.
This is gross. I offered him 4 young guys for this pick when I was looking at doing cut downs and stuff. And
I don't think this trade is that bad. I don't at all. This draft is better than the next year's. I don't think the next year's is going to be as bad as people are saying, but I personally like Garendo as a player in that scheme. He traded end of the third round for early third round next year, but they'll probably be pretty equal, is my guess. So I don't hate that trade.
I don't think any of us dislike Garendo. I think we all like Garendo. If I'm Pat, I'm not giving up any of my future draft capital for Pat. But okay, El Beckham for $15. We're not going to talk about that because who cares?
Yeah, we can probably get into the draft, and then these other ones happened while the draft was going.
Okay, we'll do that. So, yes, okay, perfect. Round 2. Finished with round 1 last time, and now we can chat a little bit about round 2. Do we want to start by saying who best picks worst picks of round 2?
Sure.
I could start since you already know my worst pick. I'll just say my best pick.
Yeah.
I really like the A.D. Mitchell pick. I think out of everybody in this draft, second round, he definitely had the most productive last season in college. I think I said this on last podcast too. Just really impressed with all the Texas players in this draft. I think even more so because Ewers missed like 3 or 4 games, maybe 5 games last year, and these guys all performed with backup quarterbacks throughout the whole time, and really put them in a position to win at the end of the year. This is a guy who's super clutch. He makes big catches. He was a go-to guy. He had like over 10 touchdowns. I think he had 11 or 12 touchdowns last year. So definitely the most production out of anybody in this round. And definitely not a great spot to land in. Like, we don't really know what Anthony Richardson's going to be as a passer yet.
Yeah.
But definitely some opportunity in that offense to be the number 2 receiver. So overall, I thought this was a great pick. In my opinion, much better than any other player in this whole round.
We'll talk more about AD when he comes up. So we'll just kind of let the person stand on their soapbox for their best pick. Spitz, what's your best pick of round 2?
So there were 2 very polarizing receivers in this draft. One is Keon Coleman. People don't seem to know what they think of him. Well, half the people really like him and half the people hate him. I'm going to go with another guy that half the people like and half the people hate. I'm planting my flag here on Xavier Legette.
Wow.
Yep.
Best pick. Or are we talking best or worst pick? What's happening here? I don't know.
Best. Yep. I mean, depending on who you talk to, I mean, it easily could be the worst pick. I'm planting my flag on Xavier Legette. You watch the film on this guy. I know the questions, but you watch the film on this guy. He jumps out. He reminds you, not just because he played for South Carolina, he reminds you a lot of Debo when he catches the ball. The dude is a freight train. He is so fast and big and strong. Questions about his route running, but other than that, he can go up and get the ball. And if you get the ball in this dude's hands, look out. And I know he's a fifth-year senior and he didn't do literally anything before his last year, but you watch the highlights. I don't know. He impresses me. So it's a bold pick, but that's what I'm going with.
Okay. I actually like quite a few picks in the second round of this draft. I was debating whether or not I do this pick because it was an early pick. So it's like, well, of course, the early second round pick guys are better than the late second round, in my opinion. Most are, but to me, it's Ladd. I love Ladd. I was looking at taking Ladd with as early as, that 110 that I had. So to be able to get Ladd in the second round, yeah, it's the first pick of the second, so it's basically into the first. But I think that guy's great. I think the Chargers have a huge void at receiver. Even if Quentin Johnson is good, they still do. And I know that team wants to run heavy. I feel like Ladd is a very talented receiver who can work well in the modern day NFL of just running routes, getting open, making plays. And I think he is not looked at as, I think his ceiling isn't seen to people because of his injury and lack of play time and playing with Georgia and the play style and all kind of stuff. So I'll plant my flag on Mr. Ladd McConkey. I like a lot of picks up here, so I could have easily chose a couple other ones, but that'll be my take. How about worst? We'll go with Vice. Vice, let's hear more about Hoppy's pick.
I think I already talked about Benson in a little bit, but he played in an offense in college that was not prolific. He didn't have really high stats because they didn't throw a lot. It was mainly a running offense, and he was a great blocking tight end. He also led their team in receiving, but again, they didn't throw a lot. I don't see him producing at a fantasy level in the NFL. I think Zach Ertz is going to be better in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator there, and Cliff Kingsbury was in Arizona with Zach Ertz, and he's the same one who played Zach Ertz over Trey McBride for the majority of last season. So I think you're going to see that again this year. Maybe in the future, but I could see this as a guy who gets just like buried and ends up on the waiver wire here at some point. I just don't get the pick.
One thing me and Spitz have talked about, and this is more or less Spitz educating me, but it's definitely true because he did years of Dynasty before we started this one. Young tight ends, don't draft them, don't take them. If you want to take your shot with a guy like Bowers or a Pitts or a Kincaid, okay. Last year's rookie tight end success was not the norm. Like you get the Laportas, and it's like, oh my gosh, then got to take Ben Sennett here. But typically speaking, these rookie tight ends, they take a while, like 3 to 5 years to have a role that's fantasy relevant. And what happens is like there's at least a 30% chance that this guy hits the waiver wire this year.
Well, I mean, isn't Cole Turner there too? I mean, they got that guy. He's a promising tight end too. So I just don't get the spot. And like you said, I think people go off like a recency bias of Laporta and Kincaid were great tight ends last year, rookie seasons. Then all of a sudden, we're going to have a tight end like that again this year. Not necessarily the case. Same thing. Like I listened to the couple podcasts that I've listened to so far. All they talk about is finding the next Puka Nacua. And it's just like, that doesn't happen every year. Like it's not a normal thing for a guy who nobody talks about to like be the top 5 receiver in the NFL. So, I just don't get this pick. I'll probably stop talking about it because
the best chance of guys like Ben Sennett and Jatavian Sanders of not hitting the waiver wire is if they are one of your taxi squad spots. Then they won't. Then they'll just stay there, but they're probably not coming off it either. So,
I mean, if you're going to take a tight end here, I'd rather have either of the guys drafted in the 3rd round over this guy.
There's a take. Spitz?
My worst pick is pick 212, Bucky Irving. This is the class. What's that?
Get your cuff.
I love this pick because it allowed me to get some insane value at 3-1. So,
okay.
You go ahead.
Alternate view there. All right. Bucky Irving. This is the classic case of the guy who started at a powerhouse program, which of course is for the Gophers. He couldn't see the field because he's playing for the powerhouse program. He never got to play, so he had to transfer out to a lesser program.
Makes sense.
Oregon Ducks. Yep. And there he finally got to play. Less competition, of course. So I don't like the player. Yep. I don't like the player. He's small. He looks smaller than 195. That kind of surprises me. He is quick and he has a lot of agility, but he's small, not strong. I question his durability for sure. I don't personally see it for him. He's crafty, I guess, with his moves, but he was so slow, and that was shocking. The fact that he went where he went in the draft was pretty surprising. I just don't particularly get it. I don't think he has a chance of being like a workhorse ever, and he's like a committee back at best, at very best, in my opinion. If it's 3 years down the road, I won't be surprised if he's not on a team anymore. I get why he did it with handcuffing his guy, but I do not like this pick.
Okay.
I definitely agree. I know you said he's quick, but I don't think he is. I think he ran a super slow 40, which ended up dropping him.
There's a difference between quickness and speed.
True.
Yeah, he's not fast. He ran an awful 40, but I think he's laterally quick.
I think he was a higher prospect before the combine, and I really dropped him down the draft board when people saw that he was slow as well. I completely agree. This would be another pick besides the Senate pick.
It still surprised me where he went in this draft after that. He was a 3rd or 4th rounder, I think. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too about this is Nick has Rachaad White. So
Yep.
I guess you could make the argument that he's, in his mind, locking up the Tampa Bay backfield. I'm not even sure he's accomplishing that with getting Bucky Irving here because, I mean, there's a chance that they still have Chase Edmonds. Or, I mean, fill in the blank with whatever random vet is on that team. Like, Bucky's probably not getting the full workload. He's probably getting just third down, even if Rachaad White's gone. So, yeah, I don't. And I'd rather shoot for upside than handcuff in a dynasty league. Like, give me somebody else. Because he's got a pretty old team, and having some good young talent would be good for his team, but not if it's a guy that's just not going to have much of a role. I don't disagree with either of the picks that you guys have made. I will have one just to be different. And it's not that I dislike this guy, but I just think he was a reach over some of the other guys in his position that went. My pick is going to be Javon Baker. Some people really like this guy, and this pick might be just fine. Like, there's a chance that it's like, no, this guy was better than Polk or Burton or Troy Franklin. I wouldn't put the probability of that, of being, I would rather take a shot on those other guys than take a shot on him. I think this guy is a good early third round pick. So to me, it's a reach. And he took him over Polk too, which is interesting. I mean, he just likes Baker. Now, Justin was the guy that made this pick. He took Drake May. He's trying to get some of his weapons. I like that. That's cool. Clearly, he likes Baker over Polk. If I was him, I'd rather take Polk and see what happens. I'd rather just bank on the higher draft capital. Like, New England had a chance at the pick that they took Polk. They could have took Polk or Baker. There's a reason they took Polk, because they think he's better. So, that's my take with this pick. I just think it was about a half round at least too soon.
Can you like a pick and not think it's going to work out? Because that's what I see in this pick. I just think it's so bold. It reminded me a lot of Vice's Stroud over Young pick. It's a very bold pick. I'm going to guess. I don't think it'll work out. I think the probability is that it won't. I just like it because it's bold. But yeah, he went 2 rounds, full rounds after the receiver in front of him. And just based off that would worry me. But it's an interesting pick for sure. I was kind of very surprised he made it.
Yeah.
I just want to see if he can get wheelchair people to stand up.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of confidence, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. So I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so those are our best picks, worst picks. Now we'll just kind of go through and talk about the other picks. First pick in the second was Ladd, Pretty Boy Ladd. As I mentioned, I love this pick. I was super excited with this. It was either going to be him or Keon Coleman as far as I was concerned, and I would have been fine with either guy. I think Ladd has the better floor, and I think he could still have a decently good ceiling. I think he's a good player who's just had some injury bugs. Now that may persist, that may stay. He may never amount to anything, but I like the opportunity he has. I like the player and his skill set. So excited to have him on my team. Do you guys have anything you want to mention about Ladd? I'm sure Vice hates him, but
I'll talk about him real quick. I like the pick too. I like the player a lot. I don't think there's much of a chance that he's not a good player or a decent player. He does more down the field than you would expect. His double moves are amazing. Like, if you watch the highlights, they're really impressive. He played with Adonai Mitchell and Burton for a bit, and he was in front of them. So that says something as well. I think this was a good value. A lot of people like it just because they think there's a lot of opportunity. I don't like the scheme fit. I don't like the situation at all, honestly. Like, yeah, they don't have any receivers, but it's Harbaugh and Roman. They're not going to pass a ton, and in the past, they don't use 3 wide receiver sets hardly at all. And he's more of a slot guy. They're going to have to transition him out to the wide receiver outside or else it's a pointless pick. If they're not lining him up on the outside, it makes 0 sense because they're not going to have enough passing volume for this to work, in my opinion. So I'm back and forth on him. I really like the player. I don't like where he went, actually.
Does it sound? It almost sounds like JSN to Seattle, except there's no good. Here's the difference. There's no one in front of him. So
Sure.
JSN could play on the outside if DK and Tyler Lockett didn't exist. Ladd, what you're saying, can play on the outside. So
He's going to have to. I mean, it's only OTAs. They're only lining him up at the slot for now. That'll most likely change. But if he's playing only the slot, he's going to get like 40 or 50% of the snaps. You have to get the ball pretty much every time they pass in those situations. So,
Vice's
we'll
favorite player in the NFL is Josh Palmer. Josh,
you need to put some respect on Josh Palmer's name.
Though I was going to ask you is what's Josh Palmer's contract situation? Do you know?
I mean, he's on his last year.
Bye.
Maybe. I mean, he could definitely show out. This is a contract year for him, so he's going to be playing for a big contract. He's been super productive when he's been on the field the last couple of years. He did get injured. Last year, he was having a mini breakout before he got injured. The end of the year, 2 years ago, he really showed out. He had a couple 25-point games without Mike Williams. So I think there's some opportunity there for Palmer to emerge as the number one here. I'm going to be negative now, guys, so I apologize, but I just don't see it with Ladd. Watched a little bit of Georgia last year. He just didn't see it. I differ in my opinion from you guys. He seemed to disappear a lot. And I could easily see that happening in an offense like this, where they're not scheming him the ball. I think it'll be tough for him to have production. I think the same thing about Ricky Purcell. So we can talk about that in a couple picks, but I'm probably going to throw some water on a lot of Ladd McConkey players.
Josh Palmer seems like the kind of guy who's going to sign with New England next year. And that'll Vice, I don't know what you're going to do when that happens because I know how much you love Palmer and hate New England. So, New England loves to overpay for these average wide receivers, and that seems like the perfect spot for Palmer to go. So,
the crazy thing about Palmer is his fourth year, and he's still like 23.
He stopped aging. He figured out how to do it. All right, so that's Ladd. I think we're going to talk about him, and I think Spitz makes a lot of valid points. Not Vice. Vice didn't have any valid points there, but Spitz had some good takes with that. How long do you think Greg Roman sticks around? 2 years?
Season.
A couple. 2.
Yeah, one. Vice had 1, so I don't know. I guess it depends on how many games they win. They might be. Vegas has them projected with a winning record, I believe, this year.
I would be shocked. Harbaugh's love that guy, though. He's been the coordinator for the Harbaughs repeatedly. They send coaches and players back and forth repeatedly. So they think a lot of them. So I don't think it'll be one and done.
They're going to have to find somebody to run the ball if that's going to be a running offense. They currently don't have anybody.
Let's see here.
They'll still be running.
Yeah, the Chargers have an 8.5 win total. Is there right there? 8.5 wins. So that's 500 with 17 games. So we'll see. All right. Next pick, Michael Little Penix. And I love this pick. A lot of people were targeting in for this pick and trying to, I know Jared was trying to get it. I feel like Krill was too. I think others were. His landing spot is interesting with Kirk Cousins and the money they're giving him and the contract. But my best guess is, they're going to be paying this guy a lot of money too. I would anticipate that worst case, he's the starter of the 2026 season. And there's a chance he's the starter next season. So to get this guy, you're not likely getting production from this year. Likely. It could happen, but it's unlikely. But Atlanta has a lot of good weapons. Stuff can change in 2-3 years. The thing that's going to be unique about this guy is he's going to be older, but you've also had those other guys like Love and Rodgers that have waited a little bit and then played. and it can work. So for an early second to get a top 10 draft pick, draft capital quarterback in an offense with good skill players, I like the gamble. You're just not going to get anything this year for it. And that's kind of perfect for Eric and Gartz because they have Watson and Hurts. So they don't necessarily need somebody for this year, but Watson is not going to be around forever. Eventually his guaranteed money will go away, and this is a good replacement in the wings for that.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. You said a lot of what I was going to say. It makes a lot of sense for the roster. I like the pick. There are questions with Penix. He's pretty old already, which not a huge thing, but he's had injuries. I do have quite a few questions about the player. When he was in Indiana, he didn't look the way he looked at Washington, and people don't have a lot of respect for Grubb and DeBoer at this moment, just because they coached at a smaller level or a lower level in college. But I think they're great coaches, and he had a decent amount of talent around him. I do wonder when he gets pressure. I don't think he's the same player. When he has a great offensive line, he's good, and you could say that's about a lot of quarterbacks, but I think it's even more so with him. If he gets good line play, he'll be good. If he gets bad line play, I think he struggles big time. He struggled against Michigan when they got some pressure on him, and I think that will happen consistently if people can pressure him. So, still like the pick.
Yeah, I think it's a great upside pick. I actually was kind of curious, so I did some searching. I didn't remember any quarterbacks ever tearing their ACL before, and then there was 2 in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So I was like, has anybody ever torn their ACL? So I looked it up. Like Donovan McNabb tore his ACL, Tom Brady tore his ACL, Carson Palmer tore his ACL, but all their production dropped off drastically after their ACL injuries. Like, yes, Tom Brady kept winning, but his production was way down after he tore his ACL. Carson Palmer had I think he only played 1 more year after his ACL, and he actually played better. But we're asking 39-year-old, like Kirk Cousins, who just tore his ACL, Aaron Rodgers, super old, just tore his ACL. Like, will these guys be able to bounce back and be their same person? So, I mean, I think there's always a risk of re-injury with that, and I think there's a lot of upside here where Penix could possibly even see some snaps this year. So good pick, especially in the second round of a Superflex draft.
Yep.
I thought this was a really good pick.
He is a lefty named Michael in Atlanta as a quarterback. So
IG Dogs.
Yep. Okay. This was in consideration for best pick of the second round for me too. Again, I just like some of my top picks that I like were sandwiched right up here at the top, but I think that was a great pick. All right, Ricky, cool guy, Pearsall, Vice, just get it over with. Let's hear it.
I mean, I don't know how you trust somebody named Ricky. First of all, I don't like this pick. I'm not a huge Florida guy. I feel like they have a lot of. I know it's not always about the college; it's about the player, but I feel like a lot of people get overhyped at Florida coming out, and I just don't see it. Again, he's kind of like a Lad McConkey guy in college for me, where he seemed to get lost during games unless it was plays were specifically designed for him. And I have trouble drafting those guys or being excited about those guys in the NFL because the competition is going to be so much greater when they have competent players guarding them. So I kind of put him in the same boat as Ladd, where I think he's definitely going to struggle. I don't love the situation he's in. We'll see. I mean, if anybody can dial plays and scheme people open, it's Kyle Shanahan. So that could work in his favor, but I'm not crazy about Ricky Pearsall.
Does your take on this change at all when the Niners trade Brandon Ayuk away?
No, because I mean, I feel like if they trade Ayuk, they're going to be trading for his replacement if that actually happens.
I think this is his replacement.
So. I think it's his replacement too, or one of those two replacements. Insurance for them. As it stands, he's not going to get a lot of production this year. I like the player. Late first round is where he went. I think that surprised me. not many people talked about Pearsall before, during the year or anything like that. I watched him. To me, he looked pretty good. I thought, why isn't this guy a late second, early third rounder? The fact that he went late first was pretty surprising. Like Vice says, there's not a lot of production from him in college. I think the Florida coach is abysmal. So I think that's part of it. But I don't have a problem with this pick. I like this pick. Wolf, I don't think cares if he doesn't produce this year. And I think a lot of the picks that he made show that, because I think he knows he's not going to be great this year, but he's trying to gear up for the year after. So I like this pick. I like the player. That's my pick.
I think it's a great pick. To me, if I was here, my pick would be between Pearsall or Leggett. And I would have gone Ricky, especially in Justin's spot where, like, if you're trying to contend this year, then Leggett is probably a better chance to give you some points this year. Ricky, you just need to have a little patience. And, it's kind of not to keep bringing up JSN, but he's good draft capital, brought into a spot. He's not the, prospect that JSN was, but you got two established dudes ahead of you, but there's some uncertainty in there. If that breaks right for you, if Ayuk stays and Debo stays and Ricky never becomes any more than a rotational guy that gets out there, it's not going to pay out. But, if Ayuk gets moved and Debo always gets hurt, like Ricky could be, your 1A, 1B kind of receiver out there for a good offensive-minded coached team with a quarterback that relies on getting the ball to his playmakers. So I think it's a great pick for him. And
I'll just make one more point. I kind of said this before, but I just feel like the Niners are a team that, like, if they have a deficit at a position, they go and get their guy, kind of like what they did with CMC. I think they realize they're like in a win now window where they probably have a couple of years with CMC on the team that they can really go after the Super Bowl. So I feel like if Ayuk ends up getting traded, I still feel like they go out and try to trade for somebody else or try to get somebody else in order to win now. So as like a 2 to 3 year project, maybe, but a guy like this, again, you could easily see him getting replaced on the roster or just kind of lost in the shuffle.
You obviously would have taken Adonai because Adonai was your favorite pick of this round. So
I would have taken him at the 2-1. So
Adonai.
I think he's better than any of these guys in this whole round up until your pick at the very end.
Yeah, so let's talk Adonai. Spitz, you wanna? I mean, we've heard from Vice. What are your thoughts, Spitz?
I like the player as far as an actual football player on that team. He is an athlete. He can go up and get the jump balls. I don't know if that's gonna relate to fantasy output. I don't think it will. One positive he has going is the Colts run a ton of plays, so that's going to help. I like the fact that he's paired with AR, actually. Most of the time I wouldn't say that, but AR can throw deep. He can go and get the ball deep, so that's good. But I think he's going to be inconsistent. I don't think he'll turn into the alpha ever as a wide receiver one, in my opinion. I think like I said, I think he's good for the team. I don't think this is a great pick, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to produce big time as far as fantasy output.
I think there are a lot more exciting places Adonai could have gone in the draft, and this was not the landing spot that people hoped he would go. I'm a Colts fan. I love the pick to get Adonai to the team because I think he's a very talented person. And I think our offense is it's ridiculous, the weapons that we're having there now. Is there a possibility that Adonai is the alpha on the team? Less than 5%. I mean, he has the athleticism to be able to maybe do it, but Pittman's, got the big he's got a new contract, his second basically stint now with the team, and he's kind of cemented himself as the top dog there. Then you've got Down. I think he could be the 2 where Josh Downs comes in as the 3. I think Alec Pierce is poofed into oblivion. And I think Richardson's a great quarterback. I think he can produce for his receivers. Krill likes bigger, flashier guys, so this makes sense to go with him over Leggett there, but I still would have taken Leggett myself. I wish Adonai would have gone to the Bills. If Adonai would have gone to the Bills, he'd be a first-round pick. So,
No, I mean, this is one of two guys in the draft, too, that had some off-field crazy issues, which caused him to fall in real life. So, again, like you just said, he could have landed in a better spot, which would have bumped up his draft stock exponentially. So, not the greatest spot, but an amazing player, and there's a lot of talent there. Plus, you guys know I love crazy receivers, so sign me up for more guys like that.
Yeah, Adonai goes to the Bills. Same player, just on the Bills. I'm taking him instead of Worthy. So he's going up all the way up at least the 110. If not sooner, someone else would have taken him. So
I think in 2 or 3 years, there's a higher chance that he's the receiver 1. I don't think it's going to happen, but I put it at 25% or so.
Well, to be fair, you've always hated Michael Pittman.
It's true. Correct.
Yeah. Leggett. So I'll talk a little bit about him. I know we've heard spit some good advice. Opportunity. The Panthers need somebody that they can throw to. Adam Thielen is aging out of the NFL, if not already. And then you've got Deontay, so that'll be good, but they need someone else. Mingo has not been good at all. Leggett comps to Mingo, which is not great, but maybe it'll be the Mingo that works instead of the Mingo that doesn't. So I just, the weird thing with him is it took him 5 years to break out in the NFL, and usually whenever that's the case, that's not. You want the guys that break out early because they're dominating against the men when they're there at 18, right? Or, as opposed to the guy that needs to become a 22-year-old to beat up on the 18 and 19-year-olds. So the fact that it took him a while, you got the COVID thing that throws stuff off, but it took him a while to break out. I heard a joke that that's why they traded up to get him, because he was the last pick of the first round. The Panthers took him with the last pick of the first round because that then gives him the 5th-year option. So when he's not good for the first 4 years, they'll still have the rights to him for year 5 when he does break out. In all seriousness, if you've listened to him in any post-game, or not post-game, but if any kind of pressers, he's a great personality. He's easy to cheer for. He's got opportunity. He might suck. At this point, this was the tier break of these 3 receivers in my mind, where after this, it breaks off. So this was kind of a no-brainer pick for Jackie, especially considering that she took Bowers and passed on a receiver earlier. You take Leggett, hope for the best. He might suck, but easy pick.
He's actually, besides the first 3 receivers, he's the biggest athletic freak in the draft as far as receivers go, in my opinion. You're on like a 4.4. He's 230 pounds. He's a freight train. There are big time concerns. That's why people hate him, and I get it. He had 42 catches. I looked this up in his first 4 years, which is just ridiculous. And then he had, I think, 70 some catches and like close to 1,400 yards his senior year. With him, I think Canales was a very good coach. I wonder if he is good, like Kyle Shanahan, about figuring out with these very unique players how to work them into the offense. Haven't seen that yet. I don't know if he can do it or he can't. So that'll be interesting to me. But I think he's a very good player. I didn't see, as far as route running, anything impressive though. So that is a concern.
Yeah, even if it takes him a little time, it could be fine. Like if he doesn't break out initially, like usual for him, this is probably Adam Thielen's last year, right? I guess he got a 3-year deal, so maybe he's got one more year to just make his money. But last year of even really seeing the field, and this team's going to need some receiver help down the road. They have other holes they have to fill, so I think he'll get a couple of years of opportunity here. But I guess you would have made the same argument about Mingo last year. So.
Yeah, I never even heard of this guy till the combine, and I watched a ton of college football. So I looked up his stats; they're really good. They jump out. I can't believe I never heard of him. I think, like you said, I think this is like Mingo 2.0. I know it's a different staff there, a different coaching staff, but Carolina's had a really tough time developing receivers. They've got a lot of mid over the years. Terrace Marshall comes to mind. Mingo, pretty mid. And Bryce Young is pretty mid. Well, if Bryce can take a step forward, I think that would be great for Leggett to at least have an opportunity to break out. He's in a good spot where if Bryce improves, then there'll be opportunity for him to produce. Thielen might not even last the season. I could definitely see somebody like him getting injured and fading away as the season goes along, and they give their younger guys a chance to see what they got. Thielen could possibly be a trade candidate too down the line. So good spot. Again, I never heard of the guy. I don't want to throw any shade on him. His numbers are great. I just haven't really seen him play.
Okay, so next up, we talk about Mingo here, and you guys both spit swapped Mingo last year, and now we're talking about Corum with a diehard Michigan fan and another guy who probably made a couple of rent payments alone just from Blake Corum parlays. So we got a fan favorite in the house here, and he didn't make anyone's list of best pick for this round. What's up with that?
I could start. I tried pretty damn hard to trade for this pick, and this is exactly who I would have taken. I actually was trying in this whole realm of picks to get Corum, like after 80 got taken, and nobody was biting. I would have drafted the crap out of Corum. Again, not a great spot, but Kyron's got some injury history. I think there's definitely be opportunity for him to succeed and take a lot of carries right away. So amazing pick. He's small. He's not the fastest guy in the draft, but he's a smart running back and really knows what the hell he's doing. So I think he's going to have a lot of success in that scheme.
Yeah, with Corum, he was at Michigan for 4 years, and he was always awesome. I don't think anyone would argue that on a college level. And I think when somebody is there for so long and producing, people try to nitpick like anything they can possibly find. I think that's what happened with Corum. They were saying anything about this guy. Yeah, he isn't big, but they were saying anything that they could. They said he couldn't catch the ball. They just don't pass. The few times that they did pass to him, you saw it in the playoffs. Like to me, he looks pretty smooth as far as catching the ball and taking off immediately after. But other than that, in between the tackles, he's as good as anybody you'll see. And his 40 time, they were worried about that. They said he was slow. He ran a good enough 40, low 4.5s, I think pretty much right at 4.5, which is good enough. He's so good in between the tackles. He's a touchdown maker. That's not going away. It wasn't just because his O-line was really good. Comparing him to like his other running backs, and I can't even think of the fast guy's name.
Edwards.
Thank you, Donovan Edwards. Watching those two and you compare them as far as in between the tackles running, it's not even close. Like Edwards is great as far as getting 60-yard touchdowns, but grinding out yards, Corum is amazing. He breaks tackles repeatedly. This year, he was coming back from a big injury, and he was not quite as good, but I think he's recovered from that. I think he's got great work ethic. Now the nitpick on him is he can't pass protect, which might be true. You never really knew because they don't pass. And when they did pass, it was play action. And, there's not a lot of thinking with that. You're just in a hole and pushing whoever's in front of you. This guy's the best running back in the draft, in my opinion. I think he's fantastic. Great pick. Love the guy. I haven't been this sold on a guy since Malik Willis. You got to feel good about that. Right?
Oh, God.
So there you are, Jared.
Cursed. Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts about Corum. My first question is, how isn't he on your guys' team? Even right now, like I'm sure you could go trade for him. And why didn't you trade up to get this guy? If you guys love him Spence, if you think he's the best running back in the draft, how is he not on your team? You're just hoping he would fall to you. And I don't know what pick you had here. You had one of these that you traded away, I think. But like, how don't you just get him? Same. I'm shocked he's not on Vice's team because I knew Vice loved him and was like if Vice would have had pick 104, I'm pretty sure he's taking Blake Corum. So like, I'm just so surprised to see him not on one of your guys' teams.
It's hard to trade with Jared. I mean, you'll agree with something that he brings up to you, and then you won't trade. So that's one part of it. But yeah.
I mean, he did trade Justin, his second and third round pick, for Ty Chandler last year, so it can't be that hard. But no, I know what you mean.
When he gets his mindset on something like JJ McCarthy or another Viking, sure.
I'll say this: if I was Jared, I would not be trading Corum either. I would hang on to him. Usually, and I just talked about handcuffs and like the Bucky Irvin, Rashad White situation. I don't like that. This is maybe the one handcuff situation that I do like. So Jared is Kyron, and Kyron's dynasty value is through the roof, really high leading up to the draft. And then take Corum, and that's the elephant in the room of Corum better? Is this guy going to take over? What's this role going to be? So if I'm Jared with such a high value guy and a guy behind him who could literally replace him or may not, I would hang on to both and wait and see what shakes out before I do anything. So
yeah, I mean, I'll get spoiler alert. I tried to trade. I've been trying pretty hard to trade for Corum. I don't. It's not going to happen with who drafted him. Unfortunately, it's just kind of one of those guys like you really like that you're never going to acquire on your team, which is a little disappointing. But
never say never. Here's the thing: if Kyron goes out there and establishes himself as a dude, and this guy is not even seeing the field, I think you can trade for him. Okay, so far it seems, well, with the exception of Vice. Vice hates a lot of these picks, but he hates almost everybody. I think the first half-ish of the second round was fantastic, right? Like I nitpick Mitchell versus Leggett or whatever, but I think this played out just as it should. This is where shit hits the rails and gets a little more wonky. So we jumped to the next pick, which was Justin. I was supposed to have 2-7, 2-8, 2-9. I ended up with none of those picks. I even had 2-10 at one point too. So I had this pick, this pick, this pick, and this pick. They all got traded. Justin, let's see. 2-7 was part of the trade that got me Debo and Mixon. And he went ahead and took Marshawn Lloyd. I've actually been warming on Marshawn Lloyd since the draft has occurred. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs. I am not sold or a believer on him. He could be great. I do a lot of best ball, and I haven't taken Josh Jacobs once. Green Bay likes to use multiple backs. Lloyd, I watched USC games. A good pass catching back. I think he can have a role in the offense right from the get-go with Jacobs. And there's a chance Jacobs has a 3-year deal. That's basically a 1-year deal from my understanding. They can get out of it after the first year. If Lloyd's good, Lloyd could be the feature back for this Packer team, become the next Aaron Jones-esque. And so initially when this draft happened, I was like, Lloyd, how'd you take Lloyd there? But I actually like this pick now with where I'm currently at with this player. So I think this is a good pick for Justin.
I don't know a ton about Marshawn Lloyd, honestly. How long is Jacobs going to be there? They do have that out after the first year. Also, LaFleur, he likes to rotate his running backs when he shouldn't be, in my opinion. So that gives him a little bit more value for this year. But Wold is more concerned about next year, and hopefully he takes over. Based off of not knowing anything about the guy, pick is fine to good. I like it. I'll send it over to you, Vice.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would rather have Jalen Wright than Marshawn Lloyd. I don't think it's a terrible pick, but I think just for opportunity's sake, I mean, you got Mostert, it's like 33 years old in Miami. He's somebody I could see maybe regressing and not finishing the season, which is going to give Jalen Wright like immediate opportunity. And Jalen Wright was better in college. He had a 1,000-yard year last year. Super explosive. Marshawn Lloyd is fast, but a lot of his stuff was schemes. oriented, and he disappeared pretty often in those USC games, where Jalen Wright was kind of the star at Tennessee. So just a personal preference, situational preference in the NFL. I would have rather had Jalen Wright for the upside, but overall, not a terrible pick. Marshawn Lloyd's okay, just doesn't do much for me.
I think you're right with everything you said, and I watched a decent amount of USC games, and like you're saying, he didn't pop out to me. I barely noticed him, honestly. So
I think the opportunity is going to be easier for whoever was. Two running backs, one goes to Miami, one goes to Green Bay. The Green Bay, with what's ahead of you, is much easier, in my opinion, than Miami. Yeah, you got Mostert, who's old. I think he'll play through the year. And he's old, but he doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires. So, and then you've got the little A-chain that's over there too, which the thing with Miami is, let's say Mostert, let's say this is his last year. A-chain has got issues staying healthy, and they're really good at using speed guys over there. So I like that fit a lot. I mean, you see the next pick? No, he's not. Oh God, next pick.
He's just the next running back.
Okay, yeah, next pick's Ben Sennett. So, okay, so that'll kind of conclude the Marshawn Lloyd stuff. Do we want to talk about? So we talked about this trade. This was the trade with me and Hoppy, where he gave me a second-round pick to move up 2 picks and got Ben Sennett. We've all talked about Ben Sennett. I do think some people there is hype around Ben Sennett. I also agree with Vice that Zach Ertz will probably be the main tight end this year. This might be Zach Ertz's last year of playing football. Ben Sennett might be really good in a couple of years. Hoppy has Travis Kelce, so he's looking for his replacement for Kelce. And I think he's just heart set on linking hands with the footballers and Mike Wright. And I like these guys, so I'm not bashing the footballers, but linking hands and just going from the Kelce to Sennett era and hoping that goes smoothly. Does it? We'll find out. So I don't think he's banking on him at all for this year because he's got Kelce. But
yeah, you guys said nope. I haven't talked about him too much.
Okay, please do. I'll be right back to it.
I don't have much to add, but I just wanted to interrupt, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Kingsbury, he played Ertz pretty much the whole year until Ertz got injured, and then McBride came out of nowhere, and that was McBride's second year, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be something similar as well. Sennett did lead Kansas State in receiving, for what it's worth. They didn't have any receivers, but still, there's something to be said about that. Maybe Vice, you can tell me. I don't even know who the footballers are. I've heard of them. Is it a show or is it like a podcast?
It's a podcast, and unfortunately, if you listen to one podcast and it keeps playing, then it'll just play the next podcast in the queue. So it's come on a couple times, and just like I said before, just some really far out takes that I feel like guys get their heart set on somebody and just try to hammer home a point. I was even texting Michael about this as soon as even last year, they're like, make sure you draft Trey Lance. They're like, are you guys watching the same thing everybody else is watching? I just don't understand why you would do that. So I try not to listen as much as possible, just because of takes like that. I was texting Michael this too about just dynasty in general, just the hype that's out there with these guys. That really turns me off of a lot of these players. These guys get on the podcast, they need something to talk about in June, and it's just they're going to put their hooks in a guy and just no matter what, that's the guy that they're going to talk about the entire summer and hope they're right. And it's like a weatherman, nothing happens if you're wrong. So you might as well just say some crazy shit and hope it's accurate.
Yeah, I knew who Ben Sennett was. I thought Washington reached on him, and I was very interested in Hoppy's pick for what we talked about before. Who are you drafting here, considering what you gave up? And I saw it, and I was I was very surprised, and I texted that to Mike too. I was like, what the hell is that? And he said, the footballers, who I didn't know who they were, they love them, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, whatever. That was my take.
All right, I'm going to defend the footballer's honor here because we're getting a little tar and feathery for my liking, but they're the top fantasy football show. You can catch them on Spotify, catch them wherever. They do have really good football advice, good rankings. Yeah, everyone's going to have bad takes. And one of the guys, Mike Wright, he's a Trey Lance truther. So, you know, they have dynasty leagues and they ride and die with these guys, but they weren't like at the point that it was pretty clear that he wasn't going to be the dude. They weren't blowing up his advice. Must have listened at a bad time or whatever. Because I do, like, in season, I listen to those guys in their daily show. They give good advice. Everyone gives bad advice. You know, you got to take in a lot of information and choose what you think. Makes most sense. Like, I know, Spitz, you like the underdog guys a lot. I like them too. I think they're also really good. Just a fantasy flock, another guy that does some good stuff. So kind of absorb it all and go from there. But some people, if they don't listen to a lot of shows, then they're going to get more hot takey with what they hear in their one show. And anyways, Ben Sennett, dynasty plan, you know, for taking over from Kelsey is what he's thinking there. Dumb trade. Thank you, Hoppy. Appreciate the pick. 2-9. So we talked about Baker a little bit. This was a trade that I made with so the next 2 picks, I made trades with Justin to get these guys. And it's interesting because the guy I traded for 2-9, I think, is less value than the guy I traded for 2-10. So 2-9, if I would have taken this pick, it probably would have been Polk, maybe Roman Wilson. Wouldn't have taken Baker, but I ended up trading this pick to get Chris Godwin, which I think I'm good with that. Godwin didn't have a very good year last year. They played him a lot outside of the slot too. This year, there's an emphasis on trying to get him back into the slot where he excelled. I think he's a good player. He didn't have a lot of touchdowns go his way. That is not – sometimes that just happens. So my thought is trading some of these picks for vets that can help me contend this year. Like if I take Rome Wilson or, you know, Polk, maybe Polk would have worked, but I want guys that I could reliably start, build some depth for my team. So I liked getting a guy like Godwin, who's a good receiver that will have a role in the NFL for the next several years. For a guy with a lower hit rate down here. So I already talked about Baker, like the player. He wants to obviously pair somebody with Drake May. I would have gone Polk over Baker personally. You probably could have got this with a later pick. But yeah, anyone else did we talk enough about Baker and kind of exhaust through that?
I didn't really say anything about him, but I don't know who he is. I've never heard of him. I never saw him do anything in college. So he's a guy for me that's just kind of a mystery. We'll see. I don't love the spot that he went. I think they have a lot of like below average to mid wide receivers there. So he definitely has a chance to stand out.
What do you think of the trade?
I mean, definitely for you, I'd much rather have Godwin than any of these players here. Hands down, great trade.
How about for Justin?
I mean, for what he's trying to do is just take some dart throws on some younger guys. He did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I personally like some of the wide receivers that were taken after Baker. Probably at least the next 3. And maybe let's see who's the next one. Yeah, I'd probably put that. Like, I'd rather have the next 3 wide receivers, except Roman Wilson. 3 of the next 4, I'd rather have than Javon Baker.
Spitz, what's your take on the trade? You already talked about Baker, but yeah. What's your thought on the trade?
I thought this is what Justin should be doing. He should be unloading all these guys. He should be unloading Godwin, Kamara, all of them, and just trying to get the best value he could. I think Kamara, I mean, that's a steal for you. As far as
we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about that one, but
yeah, as far as Godwin is concerned, I think there's a possibility he might be done. Potentially.
It should be.
Yeah.
Dunn's a little strong.
I mean, as far as Dunn, I mean, is he going to be a top 30 receiver anymore? I'm not sure on that at all. I think he didn't have a ton of athleticism. He was very he was good with the ball in his hands, but I don't think he's overly athletic. And then with his injury, I think that might get worse. So I like what Wold did with the whole draft, and I think he should have made this trade. Guys like Kamara and Godwin are only potentially hurting him. They're not helping him. So that's my take.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair deal, and we'll know within the first 6 weeks of the season if he's toast.
Yeah, he could be great. I mean, he could go back to being a lot better than I thought, and there's not much of a risk for you. So makes sense for both teams.
All right, next trade was also supposed to be mine. This one, I traded straight up to Justin for Kamara. Basically, I took Justin's whole veteran team and exchanged it for half of my draft. I was supposed to have 5 second-round picks, and I only picked 1. No, I picked 2 in the second. But yeah, I got Debo from him. I got Mixon from him. I got Kamara from him. I got Godwin from him. So I kind of just took a whole bunch of his vets, and he got, it's 2 teams headed in different directions. Mine trying to contend and his trying to rebuild. So with this pick, he took Roman Wilson. I like Roman Wilson. He was definitely a guy that was on my radar. I would have taken him over Baker. I would have taken him over Ben Sennett. I would have taken him over Lloyd at the time. Now I don't know if I would have, but back then I would have. So I like this guy. Think he's a good player. Think he's a good receiver. He didn't he played for Michigan, which ran a lot, didn't throw a lot, but whenever they did ask him to make plays, he made plays. And Pittsburgh needs more guys than just Pickens. Maybe they'll get if Ayuk goes there, that hurts Roman Wilson's ability to, develop into something. But assuming they don't pick up any guys via trade, the Steelers have always done well with drafting, receivers. Like, they do a really good job. So why would you bet against one? I wouldn't. I think he's a good player. Great pick. Love this pick. Obviously, I love the trade for me to get Kamara, just because they go from no running back to having some depth. If some of these vets the wheels fall off. So, and that was in my inbox. I was playing volleyball and came out after a game and it was there, and I just said, "Fuck it," and hit accept. Try not to overthink it. So.
That surprised me that he sent out that offer to you. I think I was giving him a better offer, and I was trying to reach out to him, and he didn't respond.
I was trying to negotiate to give up less. It didn't work, but
I think I offered him, or was ready to offer him something better. Justin wasn't responding, and he said he'd rather have that than what I was going to offer. Which, okay, but yeah, no, that's a good trade for you. I get it for him. But that's a good trade for you, kind of a no-brainer for sure. As far as Roman Wilson is concerned, I like the player to an extent, but it's kind of like the same thing with Ladd McConkey to me. He seems like a slot guy, and he's playing for Arthur Smith. How often are they going to incorporate that? And I honestly wonder if they got him for his blocking skills. Seriously. Like, he's a good blocker, and I don't know. I've heard somebody, it was some fantasy person or somebody on NFL.com, and they said this is a great fit for Arthur Smith's system. I don't know what that means. I guess it doesn't seem like it to me. So I have questions about that. Not so much with the player, but more with his situation.
The Steelers will be interesting this year. I feel like they've been gearing up. Everything that they've done says that they're going to be a running team. So a lot of what Spitz said, like Roman Wilson, maybe the next Juwan Jennings, where he's one of the best blockers in the league. He isn't going anywhere. He could have a really nice NFL career, just not a fantasy guy. I can definitely see that happening. Pittsburgh obviously has a great track record drafting receivers, but they're not a run and gun team anymore. So we'll see what happens here. That's not the greatest pick. Obviously, Justin did what he should do and trade for a pick. I would have loved to get Kamara on my team. So great pick for you. Really sets you up with nice depth. and we'll just see what happens here with Roman Wilson. I probably would rather have most of the guys that were taken after him here, except Bucky Irving.
Pittsburgh's offense could look very different next year too. Like, I don't know if either of those quarterbacks will be the starting quarterback next year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you got Fields to worry about too. He could be the starter at some point, and then everybody's really screwed.
I don't know if either of those guys will be the starter next year. And there's Arthur Smith doesn't seem like the guy that you give too many years to just because. I know Pittsburgh has a lot of loyalty with coaches, but yeah, we'll see. All right, so after Rome, then comes Vice's guy, Jalen Wright, picked by Jeremy. I believe this pick was fairly straightforward for them as far as who was available and who they decided to take. I don't think this one took them an awful long time to do, if I recall correctly. But speedster, running back, goes to Miami. Fast running backs in Miami tend to work well. There's a lot of them, so that's the concern. Good, but at this point, I was just sitting there with the 214 and like, man, all these receivers that I like just keep getting ignored. Like,
it was beautiful.
Hulk, Troy Franklin, Burton. I liked Rome. So I'm watching, sure, Corum, but Lloyd, Sennett, Baker, Wright. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm doing the math. I have this pick. I'm like, I know I'm going to get somebody that I like now at this. Well, yeah, I knew I was going to have somebody. And then Bucky Irving comes. It's like, well, now I got options. I got two guys I like. But, I know that I think they would prefer to rather add a running back than wide receiver. But I don't know. I think the decision to skip on these receivers for these other guys is way too common at the back end of this second round for my liking. So,
I agree with you, and I told you I had picked 213, and I said there are going to be guys there that you're going to be so surprised are there.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming. I had a fallback plan as far as who I would pick, who I would have been comfortable picking, and I'll say that when that person's up.
Okay.
But I thought, I'm not going to get that guy. There are going to be guys that fall, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll take this guy instead. But anyway, Jalen Wright, I like this pick. He won't produce right away unless there are injuries, which those two guys, there probably will be injuries. And if you're one of the top two running backs in that offense, you're going to have production. So, and Mostert's probably moving on, next, not this upcoming year, but the year after is my guess. So I like this pick. I like the player. He's fast. He fits in that scheme, like you said. The only thing with him, he played against a lot of light boxes to me, Tennessee, because Tennessee was always vertical, throw the ball down the field, and they had
Milton.
What's his name?
Joe Milton.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Joe Milton can huck it down the field. Not a good quarterback in my opinion, but he can huck it.
Yeah.
And he was playing against 5 or 6 men in the box a lot. But still, I like the player. I like the pick. I think it's good.
I actually tried to trade for this pick for Jalen Wright. So great selection. I know that they needed a running back, which is why they weren't interested in trading. They were looking to get some more depth for their running back room. It's not great after McCaffrey. So great pick by them. It's what they needed to do. I think they're a win now team as well. So not taking a best player available here makes sense for them because they're trying to make their weakest position or like a hole in their roster stronger through the draft. And I think they did that with here. There's tons of upside. One injury away from being a contributor, solid running back 2 right away. And then next year he could be the guy there, which would be incredible. Awesome in college. Like he had a 1,000-yard year last year. He ran like a 4.3 40. So super fast, super explosive. I love the player. I like the pick. It makes sense for what they wanted to do on their team. And I'm just kind of upset I wasn't able to trade for him.
Do you think he's more likely to be the guy than A-Chain once Mostert's gone?
Absolutely. I think they see A-Chain, and maybe I'm alone here. It seems like maybe I am alone listening to like fantasy podcasts and stuff, but I don't think they see A-Chain more than a 7 to 10 touch a game kind of guy ever. I think that's going to be his role and what he does with it. If he's efficient, he's going to be a great producer. And if not, he'll just kind of be hit or miss, maybe like Darren Sproles in the past. I think that's the best you can hope for A-Chain.
Have you tried to trade for this guy since the draft? Because I feel like you probably should before I post this podcast with the way you're talking about him.
I have a tough time getting anybody to respond to me, minus a couple of you guys. So I would definitely talk about trades for this guy, but again, not a whole lot of responses from most of the league when it comes to trading.
I believe Jeremy watches these podcasts, so yeah, you could probably this might be the spark. I know you tried trading Romeo Dobbs to half the league at this point for all these picks, but
yeah, I highly overestimated the interest that people would have in Dobbs.
The sex appeal, as Pat would say.
Pretty frustrating for me. I did try to trade for all the way down the line. Just let people know, like, hey, this is still available. I'll still take it here. Just because I, as the second round went along, like Spit said, like the guys that were following, I was looking at my 3-1 that I had, and I was like, oh my God, like if I can end up with one of these guys, like, okay, sounds good. And then these picks kept happening, Roman Wilson, starting at Javon Baker, I want to say. And then the next picks kept happening, and I was like, oh, we're going to get some value here at the end of the second and the early third. And then this pick happened, or Bucky happened, and I was pretty happy.
Anybody want to talk about Bucky? We all just think it's a bad pick?
Yeah, I think we talked about how bad he is already.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick. All right. Then after Jalen Wright and Bucky go, someone has to take one of these. I know someone was probably itching to take Ray Davis, but you got to take one of these receivers up the board. Jalen Polk. He went in the second round, if I recall correctly, to the Patriots. They obviously have a need. Polk was one of the weapons for Little Penix up there, and kind of had interesting scouting reports about him and how good he would be. Like the draft capital, I like the opportunity, like banking on that kind of stuff. 6'1", 200 pounds. Take a shot, see what happens. It's probably not a well-coached offense, but maybe he's a good player. Of the next three picks, Polk, Burton, and Troy, that's probably the order in which I would have taken those. Well, it is the order in which I would have taken those guys. I would have taken Polk over Burton if he was there, but since he wasn't, I like Burton. We'll talk about him in a sec too. But yeah, great pick and well overdue as far as I was concerned with Mr. Polk.
Yeah, no, I think the Patriots probably overdrafted him, but he was the 37th pick. Like it was like almost a first round pick or pretty close to, which is very surprising. They might have overdrafted him. I think he's a good player. Same with you. I'm just taking somebody that was close to a first round pick in a great receiver class with not much competition. And I'm just going to see what it is. I'm very, very happy to have him with that pick.
Yeah, definitely. Like all three of these guys here, I would have been happy getting any of the three of them. Burton's probably my favorite of the three. But yeah, I think you did out of the three, like you said, like great pick. He's in a spot where he really has a chance to perform. A lot of opportunity there to break out. Brissett's not terrible at quarterback. He's definitely can get the ball to people that are open. So if this guy can have any sort of production, he's going to have some stats immediately, which will be.
I like how you just completely disregard the existence of Drake May too. Like he's just not even.
Well, I mean, I think they've already come out and said that.
Yeah, but what's that going to last? 6 weeks? Like Jacoby's not taking this team to the playoffs. So you said you'd be shocked if they win like 4 games. So
it's a very like copycat league, and now that the Packers have had success with Jordan Love, that's exactly what these teams are trying to do. Is develop a quarterback before they throw him into it. They seem pretty adamant on the fact that they're not playing Drake May this year. So I feel like that hurts a lot. It could help a lot of these guys. I feel like more than hurt them because they're going to have like a professional quarterback to throw them the ball right away. We'll be able to see what they can do with somebody that can get the ball to them.
Okay. Last pick of the second, which obviously I like my picks, but it baited having this be one of the best picks of the second. This was the last pick of the second, but Burton he's got off the field attitude issues apparently, or on the field attitude issues.
And
he's got attitude issues.
Yeah, he's the other crazy.
He's an immature child apparently.
Him and 80 are the two crazy guys.
Yeah, but he's also very athletically talented, and he gets to go play with Joe Burrow. And Boyd left, and Higgins is. If he's not moved before the season, I doubt he'll be there next year. I'd be shocked if he was there next year. So you got Chase, and then you're going to need other good players to play around with him and play with Burrow. And Burton has the athletic ability to be a dude there. And even this year, I think he's going to have – I think he could make some big plays. I don't know if it'll be easy to know when to start him this year, but this is the last pick in the second. To get a guy that could be – next year, he could be Joe Burrow's number 2. I mean, there's reasons to like this pick more than Polk for that reason. So, but he's not going to be the one. He will not be the one. Polk could be the one for the team. I don't know how good of a one he'd be, but he could be the one. Burton will never be the one with the Bengals. He's not ever going to be better than Chase. So, but you don't need to be better than Chase. You could be the number 2 and have a great role for the team.
That's why people listen. Bold takes. Burton is not better than Jamar Chase.
It only took until the hour and 32-minute mark to get that sizzling take 2. So
yeah, I'm not going to have a lot of productive things to say about Jermaine Burton. I hate the guy, honestly, and my thoughts of him are so skewed because of it. So I can't even honestly assess him as a football player. I think he's a douche. Other reports are that he is a douche. I mean, you see him hitting women on national TV, and then Nick Saban doesn't even do anything about it. And like I said, there are other reports saying that he is a total tool. So I just wasn't interested just based off that because I hate the guy. And I don't have anything productive to tell you that you probably already don't know. So
well, I think that was productive.
No. Okay.
That was actually pretty productive because I didn't know any of that, what he actually did. I just knew.
I didn't either.
So when they lost to Tennessee, when we were in Nashville, when they lost to Tennessee, a woman came on the field because they're all excited, and he went out of his way to just like hit her across the face. And yeah, I mean, you can find it on YouTube. There was no reason. She didn't say a word to him. She was a few feet away from him. He had to like reach out to hit her for no particular reason.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the pick. I didn't know about any of that stuff. I think this is he had an amazing landing spot. If he can overcome some of that stuff off the field, on the field, he's got a chance to produce right away. If T. Higgins has an injury history as well the last couple of years, what happens if he gets injured this year? Does he sit out with his contract coming up? I think that's a real possibility. So definitely a chance for production. Probably my second favorite receiver in this round. Obviously, you wouldn't have had to like reach for him early second, just because of where he was going. But talent-wise, I think he's right up there with Keon Coleman, Lamb McConkey. So in a great spot, way better spot than some of those other guys. So
here it is. I mean, it's kind of hard to see here, but
they have a better view of it where it's
there's a side one that's here too. Right here. He pushes that girl.
Pushes.
Gave her a love tap. Okay, he's on my team. I have to be I'm just kidding. I haven't seen that before. That's the first time I saw that. So
I did think I was getting this guy at 3.1, so I was a little bit disappointed when Michael snagged him.
Well, I didn't know if I was going to take him or Troy. Troy Franklin was a guy that a lot of people had mocked to go up in the end of the first before the rookie draft, the NFL one, and then he kept falling and falling and falling. And I mean, I don't know how many lengthy conversations we're gonna have about guys in the third round here. I think Troy Franklin might be one of the last major ones for me. But Troy Franklin was the next pick here. Went to Vice at the 301. Forget how you got the 301. It was obviously from me at some point.
Daniel Jones, see you later.
Yeah, this was I love this pick. I was between him and the other one. I like receivers that go to place that have good opportunity. You get a lot of that here, and he gets to play with his quarterback from college. They have chemistry, and I'm getting ready for the draft. I was convinced that Spitz hated this guy, and then you'll hear his take here in I guess now. Go ahead, Spitz. Why don't you tell people what you think of Troy Franklin?
So there was that trade that happened. I just want to chime in a little bit. Don got a starting quarterback for this pick. I don't know exactly what the trade is. It was Eckler, I think, in the 3 for
what was this trade?
It was 3.1 and Eckler for Daniel Jones, and I don't even remember the other thing.
And that trade was made well before you knew who was going to be at the 3.
Oh, Tyler Lockett was the other part.
That was made well before you knew it was going to be at the 3-1, though, right?
No, I knew it was the 3. It was before I knew who was going to be here.
On paper, I like that trade actually for Donnelly, but I just wanted to comment because he just has such an affinity for shit quarterbacks. That is honestly astounding. Donnelly knows what he's doing, obviously, very well, but what the hell is his bench? What is that? It's just ludicrous, honestly.
I really wanted to get off Daniel Jones. He's got a weird thing in his contract that Russell Wilson had he gets paid more if he gets injured again. So there's talk that they brought in Drew Lock, where there's a possibility that Daniel Jones might not even play, and they're going to try to get out of his contract. So I read that story before the draft. It's a really weird thing, but I was definitely I went into the draft with the goal of getting rid of Daniel Jones for some sort of draft capital in this draft. Not a lot of takers, obviously, with his poor season last year. 3.1, I maybe could have done a little bit better, but really happy with the end result, which I didn't know at the time. Really excited to get Troy Franklin. I think a lot of people talking about him being the 4th or 5th best receiver in the draft. So if I can get that kind of production out of him, that trade will be way worth it. Lockett and Eckler just kind of was like a need swap. Like I need another running back. Don wanted some extra wide receiver depth. So essentially it's just Daniel Jones with the 3.1. So at this point, I'd rather take a chance on a wide receiver breaking out than a guy who might not even be a starter again in the league.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about Troy Franklin, actually. I've done, I don't know about a 180, but pretty close to. So with Troy Franklin, last year in the middle of the year, they were talking about him. Some people are talking about him as being better than Odunze, which was just like, what? I didn't even really know who he was. And I watched Oregon play. I was not impressed. I thought Tez Johnson was a better receiver. That's the smaller guy, of course.
Yep.
I love small guys. So I thought Tez Johnson was a better receiver than him. And I just couldn't believe that people were comparing him to Odunze. I thought it was just ludicrous. So I hated him because of that. But after he fell to the 4th round, I actually like him at this point, like a decent amount. I mean, he had great production at Oregon, great production. He's a very small guy as far as, he's 180 pounds. You would think that you would want to jam the guy, and people do. But if you watch his film, that's the one thing that I noticed, like watching his highlights, his releases off the line are really good. And people have a tough time jamming him when they want to. That was what impressed me most with him. He can really get off the line without much contact, and that's where a lot of his highlights came from. He's got a good opportunity with Nix being there. As far as potential elite production, I doubt it. Like he's not as quick and agile as you would expect. Like his 3-cone and his shuttle times were awful, which you wouldn't expect from a small guy. So he's really interesting, but I like him for sure at this pick now. Early fourth round in the NFL draft, and right here, I would have been happy definitely with getting him with my pick. So I think it's a really good pick.
So obviously you would have taken him over Burton because you hate Burton.
Correct.
Do you have regrets about taking Polk over him?
No.
Okay.
No. Just because of the draft capital and Knicks, I don't see that being an elite offense anytime soon, or even average to good anytime soon. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think those picks, Polk, Burton, and Franklin, were far better picks than the 5 picks before it. So
It kind of whipped people into a frenzy. I think we all realized the value that was happening at the end of the second round into the beginning of the third round, because trade requests were flying
yes,
back and forth. I think Don and I referred to our league as a bunch of degenerates because we all knew exactly what was there at the end of the second round, and everyone's just trying whatever they can do to get those picks. So
yeah, I was getting tons of offers that were coming in for the 214.
I was pretty happy with what ended up there. I actually would have rather had Burton. I know we had that conversation, but happy with taking either one.
Yep. Okay, so that brings up the third round. Considering at least 25% of the guys in the first round, Vice City doesn't know who they were. I don't know how much we'll have to talk about the third round here, but do you guys want to still do best pick, worst pick, and then go pick by pick? You want to do best pick, worst pick, and then just talk about any picks that are relevant? I think we do best pick, worst pick for sure.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't have a ton to say about a lot of these guys. I'll just,
I don't either. I think if we focus on a couple guys each, maybe that'll be
cool.
Good enough.
Sounds good.
I'll try to pick different guys than you.
All right, so we'll just overview and all right. Here's a pick that I like. One of the guys that I like here is Vidal by the Chargers, and this is because of the scheme. This is not because of the player necessarily. This is more about the coaching. They want to run, and everyone thought the Chargers were going to take Corum or a running back early on, and they just kept passing and passing and passing and passing. And eventually, they took this guy at pick 181. And they've got old Gus Bus. They've got broken down J.K. Dobbins. Like, they don't have any reliable kind of stuff there. When you get into the third round, I don't think there's a high chance that any of these guys will have staying power. Like Vice said, the Puka Nakuas of the world, that's not normal. That was an outlier. So, you kind of need these guys to shine right away and have an opportunity right away if they're going to stick around. So he's got a chance, depending on what happens with health situations over there, to be a dude for a run first team. Maybe he's good. But these late running back guys, if he's not, even if he is really good, like the James Robinsons and Damian Pierce, those guys just get replaced. They draft another running back the next year, higher pick, and he's gone. So I'm intrigued by this guy. I want to see what he does. That's one of the guys I'd like to talk about in the third.
Sure. The opportunity is there for him. I don't know anything about him either, honestly. My favorite pick of this round was the guy I was going to fall back on my pick 3 picks earlier, excuse me. I thought somebody was going to drop to me that I'd rather have, but I was going to be more than comfortable with taking Ray Davis at 213. I like him. I liked him at Kentucky. He is old, as you see there, but he's good in between the tackles. He's a better receiver than you might think. The opportunity is there for the Bills for sure. They wanted somebody in there besides Cook to do everything. They want that to be like a 50-50 split. They just couldn't find anybody. Latavius was abysmal. And I think they tried maybe Fournette or some other old guy who was terrible too. So the opportunity is there. I think he's going to have a decent floor, actually. The ceiling is probably not going to be there, but if he gets 8 to 10 touchdowns this year, it wouldn't surprise me at all. So I like that pick a lot.
Is he the Latavius Murray that you were hoping to have acquired last year in our great trade?
Yep. You just love throwing that in my face, don't you?
Well, it seems really relevant when we're talking about the replacement of
Yes, that's who I
Latavius
thought.
Murray.
Yes, yeah, that's who I thought I was getting, was that guy who I think Ray Davis can be. So.
All right, I'd be curious to know what Vice thinks about Ray Davis here too, if you have any take, because I know I haven't been taking much of any of him in best ball, and I feel like he might be a really good best ball pick, because if you think he's going to get that many touchdowns, that's what you want from these late round running backs.
I love Ray Davis. I'm actually surprised he didn't go higher in the actual NFL draft. He was one of the best running backs in college football last year. He was the Kentucky offense. Just incredible games. I'm pretty sure he had a 300-yard game. Because there were bets on FanDuel, like, will he get 400? 280 yards, 4 touchdowns. So, this guy was insane at Kentucky all year. He's got opportunity in Buffalo. I like Ray Davis a lot. Good pick. Probably my favorite pick in the whole third round. Letting our champion get Jalen McMillan at the last pick. Had I not been outside on a walk, I probably, pretty distracted. I probably would have taken McMillan over Tez.
Wait, you think this is a great pick?
This is a great pick. He was Jalen Polk 2 years ago. They switched spots as far as production because McMillan got injured last year. So Polk took over a lot of the production that Jalen McMillan had the year before. I think he had 10 touchdowns, 1,100 yards, pretty similar to what Polk did last year. He just fell down draft stock wise because he was injured. Recency bias. So letting the champion of our league get a guy like this is great pick for David having the last pick. Had I been paying a little bit more attention, I would have taken him instead of Tez.
What about Trey Palmer though?
I think Jalen McMillan's better than Trey Palmer.
Think he's better than Godwin?
Maybe at this point.
I was going to mention that too. The last 2 picks, I thought Walker was a good pick. I especially did think McMillan was a good pick too. I liked both of those. And to get those guys with the last 2 picks in the third round just shows you that this draft for receivers is fantastic. I like those picks a lot as well.
Yeah, as it went along, I saw those guys at the end. And the wide receiver talent, it just kind of kept going. And, everybody's focusing on doing some needs for their team. I probably would needed a running back more than a wide receiver, but you can't pass up somebody with that much potential, like in a Troy Franklin or when you get down to this point, like a Tez Walker, Jalen McMillan. These guys were studs, absolute studs on their team in college. And they ended up in good places, all of them. Baltimore's a good offense. Tampa Bay's a good offense. So there's definitely opportunity for them to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah, there are going to be a couple guys that weren't drafted at all for receivers that I think could be wide receiver 2s for a year or two.
David's got both these guys now. We did that. We let that happen.
So this guy, I was going to take him with his pick, but I ended up trading this pick to Vice for Romeo Doobie Doobs, who Vice was trying to trade that guy for guys a whole round earlier. So
I got Tillman too here. That's underrated.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No. He would have been cut. He would have been available to pick up if you really wanted him later.
Just wait.
But yeah, give me Romeo Doubs over Tez Walker, but I do like him. He would have been my pick if I kept it. I don't really know if you get a bad pick from the third round. I will say I like the Garendo pick. We all talked about that. I don't know.
The estimate.
Corley and McCaffrey are kind of interesting. What do you guys think of Corley and McCaffrey?
I don't know a ton about either. I know Corley does pretty much everything behind the line of scrimmage, and when you have guys that have an average depth of target so shallow, they never really seem to pan out in the NFL. So I guess that's my take on him. And he's also in a slow tempo offense as well. So I'm not that big of a fan. McCaffrey, I don't know much about. He might be the third receiver there, though, in a fast tempo offense. So that could be a good pick. I did want to note one other pick here. Can you go out? I can't remember who it was. Estime probably needs to be talked about with what's going on potentially with Javonte. Estime is an interesting player. When you watch him, he's a lot faster than he ran a 4.740 or something like that. That doesn't show up when you watch him. Like, he looks actually fast. When he gets going, he seems fast to me.
He's tough as hell.
Yeah.
Tough as hell.
I think that's a good pick, and it looked like it just got better. So I really like that pick.
You had some of the baby beasts down here. So this is a 20-year-old, and then you've got Braylon as well, who's another, like, we talked last week, we talked about bad landing spots.
It's probably the worst one.
Audric Estime, that's not a bad landing spot, but this
Braylon Allen's for sure the worst one in the whole draft.
Holy buckets. And if you think this is bad, who's the back? Because it took another guy too from
Isaiah Davis.
Yes, yeah. So another running back that had talent, and he's behind all these other dudes, presumably. So yeah, you've got some good running backs down here. This landing spot makes it tougher. Let's see, that was done by another cuff here. That was done by Kirill to just shore up, I guess, the Jets backfield, which, pros and cons of that. I'm not usually my style, but Estime, he could be the goal line dude. I don't know how much goal line opportunity Denver will have this year, but he's 20. If he's good, he'd be a great pick.
I would have been really excited with either Estime or Rattler at 3.11. They both got taken right before. Just another case in point of waiting until it's your turn to pick before you're trading for some of these picks.
Not a whole round in advance.
Yeah, I mean, once it got to me, I was pretty disappointed with who was left. So,
Weiss, you want to talk about Spencer, your boy?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has I think he has a chance to start this year. We'll see. Derek Carr's got seems to always be injured, always be banged up. A lot of times he plays through it, probably to the detriment of the team. He's getting up there a little bit in age. So I think that they could give Rattler an opportunity. The Saints aren't going to be good this year. So if they get to a point where they're out of contention or something, you might see like a late season, just see what he's got. Once upon a time, he was a great prospect. He didn't have a great college career. He seemed to be pretty mid to below average the majority of the time. He was okay last year. He was Leggette's quarterback, I believe. So that was kind of all South Carolina had. And they ended up being okay last year. Like, he was pretty fun to watch. Didn't do anything spectacular, but I don't think the Saints are spectacular either. So there's definitely like an opportunity there for him to come in and at least show what he's got.
Yeah, that's a good pick to me. Rattler, I was never impressed with in his career at Oklahoma. And I don't know, he was uninspiring, but he got to South Carolina, and I thought he was actually really good last year. And I was like, where did this come from type thing? And he showed a lot of spurts or flashes of being good. So it's worth the 310 or whatever it was to get a guy who potentially could start some games at quarterback. And if you start some, who knows what happens. So I like that.
This is a good taxi squad guy. Just throw him on there. You're not going to want to start him unless someone becomes a starter. So, all right, let's see who we kind of skipped through. So we talked about Troy. We talked about Ray Davis. Anybody want to say anything? I mean, I talked about tight ends earlier, that you get these guys and they're just like Jadavian Sanders, athletically gifted, but
go ahead, Vice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a hot take here 2 hours in. I think this guy's might be better than Bowers. So I think I mentioned to Spitz around December-ish or pretty early that he's probably the tight end that I would take in this draft after Laporta. If Laporta was to leave my team, this is a guy I would really target. I think just who picked him, Jared, needs a tight end.
All your guys.
I know, right? But with Hawkinson out, he needs a replacement at least for a part of the season. And there's again with this opportunity in Carolina where there's no established production, any of these guys could come in and out of the gate and give some solid production if Bryce Young takes a step forward. So awesome pick. The talent's amazing. I've talked about all the other Texas guys being amazing. He's just as amazing. He got not as many opportunities because AD and Xavier Worthy existed. But when he did get the ball thrown to him, he caught it. And he could easily take over a game just like those other two guys. So I did like this pick a lot. I like the player. If Troy Franklin wasn't there for some reason, like he's somebody I could have taken. And then maybe I would have more will to trade Laporta if I had somebody I wanted to replace him with.
Talk about Braylon. I think everybody kind of likes Braylon, but awful landing spot. You're there behind Breece Hall. It's just like
Awful, terrible.
what are you gonna do? You're just a backup now. He's young, but I guess the only way that this guy is relevant is if Breece has some kind of catastrophic injury. So Vidal, we talked about him. No one knows who he is, but he has a potential chance of being relevant. Luke McCaffrey, brother of Christian. Vice, this guy doesn't have a picture. He was drafted. He doesn't have a picture.
I mean, he played at tight end university, so he's got just as good of a chance as any of the other tight ends to be productive. He went to a good spot. I think Gesicki went there too, so he's going to have to compete with that. But that's been a position on the Bengals that at least gives you some like mid production.
Last year.
I mean, what was last year? Hayden Hurst, or was that the year before?
Irv Smith.
Oh yeah, I mean that's an Irv Smith problem, not a Bengals problem. So he's got opportunity there. Iowa knows what they're doing with tight ends. They've got tons of pedigree there. I think he had some injury history, which is why he fell in the actual NFL draft. So if he's healthy, he's got every chance to succeed in a system like that.
So Eric All played one season for Iowa. He played at Michigan before that. He transferred over to Iowa.
He could get drafted higher.
What's that?
Just so he could get drafted higher as an
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. He's a decent player, I guess. I don't think the ceiling's ever going to be high at all for him. But yeah.
That leaves one player left. Will Shipley. We didn't talk about him. I don't know. Arguably shouldn't have been drafted. Nick just.
I feel like his backup was better than him. I forget what his name is, but he's a better runner.
Yeah.
Will Shipley's like the textbook college player who, in my opinion anyway, that has a lot of success in college and just kind of fades away.
Will Shipley is a guy that I've hated for like 3 years. And people were talking about him being a first-round pick, after his first or second year. I've never seen it. They're trying to make the Christian McCaffrey comparisons. He's okay at catching. He cannot run the ball. His vision is awful. He runs right into guys. I want to throw some more shade on him just because nobody cares about him anymore. So this will probably be the only opportunity I have to throw shade on him. So I think I just better. I think he's terrible. Like Vice said, the guy behind him, to me, is visibly better, produced better.
Maffa.
Yeah. He's a big, strong guy too, if I remember correct. Faster than Shipley too, or at least it looked like it. I just don't like this player, and I mean at 312, it's more than fine, but I don't think he's any good.
Yeah, the only saving grace for him is that he's in a spot where he could potentially be utilized. I mean, they've got Gainwell and Saquon. So there's at least an opportunity for him to maybe take some of the Kenneth Gainwell work, whatever is left over. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much positive to say about him. I feel like he got worse as his college career went on, till the point last year where his backup was the star and he was not playing as much anymore.
And that basically concludes the third round here. I feel like, there's still good guys left. This maybe was a deeper draft than normal. We'll see what happens next year. One idea that has come up with talking to a couple people is next year we're expanding the league size by 2 extra bench spots. I could see us doing that again in like 2 years later. And if we do that, adding a 4th round as well to the rookie draft, because you look, so like, if you look at some of these guys who went undrafted, Tracy, who's the backup and could be the starter for the Giants. You've got Ali Babwa here for Baltimore. You've got another speedster going to Miami. Jerry Rice's, son, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you got some interesting guys that are here.
I think just like quarterback prospects too, in a super flex, like Jordan Travis is a good prospect. Like Joe Milton doesn't really have an immediate chance, but he's a quarterback on a roster where the first quarterback they drafted might not be that great. So he could at least have some opportunity there to maybe move up.
That was Drake May, so everyone knows.
Yeah, I figured who it was. And it could even be a situation too where like down the road, maybe we add 2 more spots and a taxi squad, or maybe it's 1 spot and a taxi squad spot and then add a 4th round. I don't know. We'll see. I'll kind of talk to people, but that's something that was floated out there. And I like the idea of expanding and having larger rosters and it being more about trades and movements than free agency personally. But because then it's all about crafting your team. So did you guys have any favorite players that didn't get drafted? Do you have who's your favorite player that was undrafted? Let's ask that. No?
Sure there is, but nothing comes to my mind.
I don't really have one. I was pretty happy to take a shot with Jordan Travis. He was having an amazing year. It would have been way higher, I feel like, had he completed his season. And he's in a decent spot with the Jets where he might get an opportunity. I talked about the ACL thing before. Like, who knows? I feel like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins are huge wild cards this year as far as them coming back and what they're going to be able to do. I know the Jets signed one of the old-ass guys, Tyrod Taylor. So there's that, but you never know. There could be an opportunity where he gets some playing time if Rodgers gets injured again, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. Some of these running backs, I don't know. I feel like it's just like we're so far out from the season, training camp, OTA hype, I think, for some of these guys. Very easily could see the Giants signing a veteran. Somebody gets cut somewhere, ends up on the Giants. Like, we're just too far away for any of these picks to actually be anything. Kind of like the Sean Tuckers of the world last year.
That's very true. I do like Malik Washington. Speed guy, going to a place who knows how to use speed guys. Tariq's not going to be there forever. I don't think you could ever know when to start him, but I could see him having a good role that expands. So
I'll say Dylan Loud for the Raiders.
Which, interesting enough about him, so I had a $22 bid in for that guy, but I ran out of roster spots. No one else placed a single bid on him for the first day of waivers, so he didn't go until the second day. I went over here for $20. Pat, who needed to fill his entire roster with players, didn't have his notifications on, he told me. So he missed putting bids in for any of these guys, so he didn't get to start bidding until the second day. So most of the guys he would have spent his money on, sadly gone. Spitz, I think you said that you have a best draft and worst draft. I don't know if I necessarily do or if Vice does, but we can definitely get your take on.
Yeah, I will mention we let our champion have Dylan Loud too. So we let that happen too.
Right. I have a top 3 for good drafts, and we can get into the bad draft if we want. But
I definitely want to get into the bad draft.
Oh, okay. The junior heteros, Gartz and Eric. I think that's what junior heteros. They're not the original, but what is it about having a heterosexual life mate? Like what is that? Like you just know what you're doing apparently if you have one. Like, do the Waldens get them on the black market?
God, you're saying that in the month of June. You got to be careful here. So
Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Like,
these are turbulent times.
uh,
You put those guys at third for best draft?
nope, I put them at 1.
Okay, I was going to say they had a great draft.
Yeah, they were fantastic. I mean, I would give this draft like an A+. It was great. Like, they have a very quick rebuild. Their team could be good next year, which I was not expecting. I mean, we tore apart that Jamar Chase trade, and we might have been wrong about that, by the way.
Yeah.
But, okay. Yeah, I mean, they have 2 potential receiver ones with Harrison and Dunze. I mean, potentially Harrison probably for sure. And if Dunze is what a lot of people think, 2 potential receiver ones for 5 to 10 years. Getting Brooks at the 9, I really like that. Penix, we talked about that. I like that pick. And I liked both of their 3rd round picks, Ray Davis and Audric Estime. So that draft is fantastic. I mean, we might look at that one and just be like, holy cow. And they could easily vault themselves into being one of the best teams.
I think me and them had the 2 best drafts. I had more picks, and that, a lot of my rookie picks ended up becoming veterans. So I don't know how you kind of rate that when you're looking at a rookie class. But yeah, they had a fantastic draft. They sniped me on Brooks. They sniped me on Rome. They would have sniped me on Neighbors. They did a great job. Great picks. And the more you guys talk about Ray Davis and Audric Estime, it could be right. And if they get value out of the 3rd round too, with the way that they did great in the 1st, and they got Penix, little Penix. I think I would agree with you that their draft is stronger than mine. So yeah, I think they did great.
I had made this comment before, but I think I did it when we went off the air last week, but I think everybody did what they needed to do for their team in this draft. I think it's going to ultimately make
everybody
better in the league. Like, I think a couple of years being in a dynasty, we're all kind of figuring out and getting better as we go along, and people realize when they need to sell people off and when they need to start their rebuild. And people took the players that fill their positions that they needed. I think the league as a whole is going to be a lot more competitive this year versus just like 6 or 7 teams playing to win. So I was excited to see that. A competitive league is way better, way more fun to be engaged with. So overall, I just thought it was a good draft. I didn't really pay attention to who had the best or who had the worst draft. I can just say I think Hoppy only had 1 pick, and I hate his pick, so I'll just give Hoppy the worst draft.
None of us have a problem with that. So,
Spitz, did you say you have a top 3 then, or
yeah?
So they're number 1.
They're number 1 for
You're supposed to work with 3 and build up to 1.
Well, that's not what happened. I do things my own way here. Number 2, you're not going to like it. And I did give this person bonus points for doing what he should have, and I didn't know if he was going to. I like Wold, what he did with rebuilding or starting the rebuild process. He has 2 potential quarterbacks. If you talk to Vice, there's only 1, but I think there's 2.
There's 1.
Okay. With Jaden and May, I like the Pearsall pick. Lloyd, 2 years from now, could be good. I like the picks. Probably more about just rebuilding and doing what he should have done. So I like that one. And for number 3, I thought it was yours, Michael. You did exactly what I thought you were going to do. You traded picks for guys that are going to produce right away. So you're going to be good now and have a chance to win, and you're going to be good going into the future. I like all the picks. I don't have qualms with any of them. Except for Burton. Yep.
There's no way that Justin had a better draft than my team. That's just ludicrous.
I told you I'd give him bonus points, but
that's really graded on the curve there. So I definitely had a better draft than him. That's my opinion. I agree that Eric and Gartz get top spot. Tough.
I think I love Neighbors. Nobody was a bigger fan of him than me, but I don't think he's going to produce right away. And who knows, his value could very well go down. Ladd, I'm like the player. I'm just not totally sure about everything. And Worthy, I like for sure, but I don't know. There are some questions there, and it's not a guarantee at all. Nothing in a rookie draft is, but I think there are a few questions that you're probably not thinking
of. Let's hear the worst.
The worst for me is going to be Corral.
I knew it.
Yeah. He has picks that, I mean, definitely could work out. We all talked about him. He should have targeted receiver first, in my opinion. And the receivers that he got, to me, they are questions. They could be good. They might not be. I don't know how well they're going to produce, especially A.D. Mitchell. I don't think he's going to be somebody you're comfortably starting this year. Yeah, there are questions for me at those picks. The Braylon Allen pick, I agree. He's not going to do much of anything this year. And even if Brees were to get injured, he's still splitting time, most likely, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Corral on that.
You think Hoppy had a better draft than Corral?
Hoppy had one pick. It was ludicrous.
That's just what I'm hearing from you. So
sure. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about people who had one pick a whole lot. So
that's fair. All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. Unless Vice, you got any hot takes you want to throw in here?
I'm good. I think we did it. I think we talked about the draft. Pretty excited to go into the year. Should be a competitive season. I think training camp starts in a couple weeks here, so we're gonna get going. And by the time we know it, it's gonna be that first Thursday night game. So excited.
It's gonna be great. Spitz, anything?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, thanks for watching. That concludes the rookie picks. Hope you love the analysis. If you haven't done your rookie draft yet and somehow you're watching this, you're welcome, because now you know who to take and who not to. And you can go watch that Jermaine Burton video before you pick him.
Make sure you take Trey Lance.
Yeah. Okay, and get Trey Lance off the waiver wire.
This is the year. This is his year.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.